Hi everyone. In today's lore video, I'm going to ask the question of how many Imperial Guardsmen would it take to take down a Space Marine? I've been rereading the books of the Horus Heresy, learning about the near-godlike abilities of the Adeptus Astartes. As they roam the galaxy, crushing the enemies of mankind and shining the light of the Emperor into every aspect of the galaxy. Their tales of conquest are vast, sweeping aside Xenos and forgotten elements of mankind, who reject the idea of bending the knee to the Emperor. So superior are their battlefield abilities. It had me thinking, what chance does anybody have up against such focused killers? As a former infantry soldier, I wondered how my puny 5'7", 155-pound frame would stack up against them. So let's get a measure of the two warriors to form an understanding of what they've both got up against them. Unless you've been living under a rock, know that Adeptus Astartes range in height from about 7 to 9 feet, and even taller when in power armour. They probably weigh about 1,500 pounds when kitted up, and their body is a bulging mass of modified thickened bone, denser muscle, an extra heart and extra lungs that can filter toxins and pollutants that even prevent drowning, an enhanced circulatory system that has superior healing abilities, and an organ called a catalysian node that means they require little sleep. They also have heightened eyesight, hearing, smell, taste, sweat out a chemical that protects them against extreme cold and heat, have various hormonal enhancements, and their body is implanted with neural interfaces that can link with their power armor. So here we have a 7 foot tall, 1,500 pound super elite athlete that can run, dodge, jump, punch, kick, crush, stomp, who requires little sleep or food, can do so without breathing, and has more testosterone than a bodybuilder competition. Think a super heavyweight UFC fighter who can operate day and night, and day and night, and day and night, and over again. Another thing to remember is that the genetic enhancement also makes them very intelligent, something we need to consider a bit later. This is further boosted by their armour. Now it sounds pretty simple, but they wear power armour, or powered armour. The backpack they wear is a power plant that powers countless servo joints throughout their suit. This means that their suit is able to support its own weight, and also enhance any movements the Marine makes. So a punch is amplified, but also on the other end of the spectrum, they can still thread a needle, or slowly and quietly pick their way through a thick forest or jungle. Blimey, it's up against those beefcakes. What has a Guardsman got to offer? Well, simply, probably very similar to what the average soldiers of today have. We are talking 38,000 years time from now, and some evolution will have occurred, but nothing of note compared to a Space Marine. For this analysis, I'll focus on the average Guardsman, so no catechins or mind-blank stormtroopers. It has to be said that the average Guardsman by today's standards would actually be very hardened. Given their constant battlefield experience, they gain in the grim dark future where there is only war. Physically they would be tip-top, kept sharp with constant PT, weapons drill, mock battles and of course deployments. So picture a late 20s well-muscled individual who can do what a Space Marine can but at a much slower pace, requires food, water and sleep, is wearing measly flak armour, and is of average intelligence. Right, so the first method I'll use to examine this is the most mathematically sound. If you don't want to hear me talk about the statistics of the tabletop game, use the timeline below to scroll forward. So the most straightforward way is to look at the point cost of the two warriors. As per the latest edition of Warhammer 40,000, a Guardsman costs 5.5 points, and a single Tactical Space Marine costs 18 points. So in theory, let's say 4 Guardsmen are equal to a single Space Marine. Is this correct? Absolutely not. As any of you who play know, 4 Guardsmen statistically have little chance of downing a single Marine. Let's run some math on it to illustrate. So just to start, a Space Marine has a toughness 4, 2 wounds and a 3+ save. A Guardsman has a weapon skill, ballistic skill of 4+, a strength 3 lasgun or bayonet thrust, with no AP and inflicting a single wound. This means a Guardsman has a 50% chance of hitting. Then it's a 33% chance of wounding, given it's a strength 3 weapon against a toughness 4 model. And then the Marine has a 66% chance of ignoring the single wound from their saving throw. So in theory, our 4 Guardsmen would inflict 0.22 wounds. Poop. But how many Guardsmen would it actually take to kill a single Space Marine using this logic? The answer is 36. Now we're getting somewhere. The 36 shots would give 18 hits, where 6 would wound, and then the Marine would fail 2 saves, removing its 2 wounds. This logic, however, would essentially require a Space Marine to stand still in front of a firing squad of Guardsmen, and they all fire a single shot at them. Is this realistic? Obviously not. So let's flip back to exploring this without the hindrance of dice rolls. I said earlier, Adeptus Astartes are highly intelligent. So would they allow themselves to be caught in the open in front of 36 lasguns? Probably not. But if they did get caught in the open, it wouldn't be without the support of their brother Marines. What makes Marines so deadly is actually largely due to their careful tactical management. Whilst Astra Militarum troopers could be thrown against an enemy, Astartes are only deployed at their choosing when the tactical scenario is most favourable to them. The careful coordination of wartime assets would be at play. That means that our 36 Guardsmen have probably already lived through weeks of aerial bombardment, resulting in mass casualties. Supply cache has been destroyed, which means they are on reduced rations, water and ammunition. They may witness comrades being shattered to pulp by bolter rounds or bludgeoned to death by an armoured fist, so morale is pretty weak. And then you got a single Space Marine charging towards you, probably covering the distance like an Olympic sprinter, being able to fire from the hip accurately, blasting apart blokes before hitting your line and then smashing skulls and torsos with his fists. So if a Guardsman and a Space Marine were to go head to head, one-on-one, how many Guardsmen would it take to take down the Space Marine? I'm going to throw it out there and say it would take 1,000 Guardsmen to kill the Marine. So let's assume the Space Marine is carrying 300 rounds of ammunition. I'm going to say that's 300 dead Guardsmen. And once the ammunition is completed, the Space Marine will then move on to bludgeoning and slicing his way through the remaining 700 troops. But these remaining troops will actually be able to use their lasguns and fire back. So over time, more and more lasgun hits will hit, meaning his armour will be damaged and potentially even his flesh being seared with shots. The Marine may even become fatigued after days of fighting, but I'd say it only starts to really see this at about the 24-hour mark. Whilst every new Guardsman is fresh and ready to go, the Marine would become more and more tired, with small wounds building and armour modules failing. The final hours of the Marine would be of pure violence, with all subtlety and practice grace gone as he relies on enhanced hormones to push him past pain and fatigue, to crush skulls in his hands and stomp body parts into pulp. The killing blow would be the 1000th Guardsman, simply charging at him with bayonet point, finding a damaged opening in his armour and plunging into a vital organ. Normally this would be shrugged off, but given the Marine is so beaten, it would spell the end. The heroic Guardsman would then poke the Marine to death, as one does when picking out the flesh of a crab or lobster when at the dinner table. I know 1000 sounds a lot, but the pure stature of a Marine is so overwhelming, and their stamina is so superior, that it would take literally days before fatigue truly sets in. His superior healing abilities will mean any small wounds would quickly heal, and his suit has inbuilt pain balms which would ignore any niggling wounds. Oh, and don't forget that his helmet feeds all types of tactical information into his visors, whilst a humble Guardsman would be lucky to have a pair of blast goggles. So for the Marine, it would be a death by 1000 cuts, and for each Guardsman, they are like the gentle erosion of stone by the waves of the ocean. How's that for some poetic imagery? So with this gory examination done, let's go back to my earlier point about the tactical use of Space Marines. If we were to ask this question at a planetary conquest level, the answer becomes a bit more complicated. An Astartes strike force designated to conquer a planet would be supported by a wide array of starships carrying continental flattening lance and torpedo batteries, planetary strike craft, armoured vehicles, and then hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Astra Militarum troopers. As discussed for the 36 tabletop Guardsmen earlier, the Astartes would be used as just one part of the overall battle. Sure, their part will be no doubt the most bloody and with the most glory, but they form just one piece of the puzzle that is war. So if an example planet was, say, modern-day Earth with about 65 million military personnel, how many Space Marines with supporting Imperial Guard and Imperial Navy would be required? It is generally agreed that between a company to a chapter of 1,000 Marines would be capable of doing so depending on how organised the defenders are. The Marines would be used in pinpoint strikes to remove key strategic assets, or whether the Imperial Guard are simply unable to achieve an objective. So for all the destructive efficiency, 1,000 Marines is still only 1,000 Marines. So simply not enough to destroy all the enemies, secure and hold the ground to avoid enemies reappearing in once secured areas. Sure, 1,000 Marines if deployed at once would shatter absolutely anything it faces, but how about all the other cities and continents that 1,000 pairs of boots aren't on? If left to do this alone, they would spend years silencing guerrilla actions, suppressing rioting civilians and running a subjugator's justice system, all boring and tedious work for the Emperor's finest. Leave it for the Guard. So in this case, it would take 65,000 Guardsmen to have a chance of defeating a single Space Marine, when the Space Marine is included as part of a planetary strike force that has the full weight of the Imperial Navy and support of Astra Militarum troopers, our poor Guardsmen. But that being said, a Guardsman will always have something that a Space Marine will never have, and that is sheer weight of numbers, ease of training and low cost to equip. Creating a Space Marine takes decades with careful selection of suitable young boys for gene seed insertion. High mortality, testing and training, let alone the cost of their elaborate war gear. Imagine how much it would cost to physically equip a Space Marine, enough to make any accountant cough. A Guardsman in comparison could be anybody who passes basic physical testing. Maybe 8 to 10 weeks of training, and let's say a few £1,000s to arm and equip with lasgun, helmet, flak armour, and the Imperial Infantryman's uplifting primer. Right, so what do you think? How many Guardsmen would it take to take down a Space Marine? Let me know in the comments. The question is purposely vague to allow a fair bit of ambiguity in the examination of this topic. So if you enjoyed it, and if you want to support me, you can sponsor me on Patreon with a link below. Otherwise, you can just support me with a like, comment, or by subscribing. Thanks for watching. See you next time.